Take two. Take two. Um,
Take two.
yeah, because so here's the thing. I was in the middle of something, and internet my inter-
Technology doesn't always work the way you want it to.
well, my internet decided to be like the Detroit Red Wings. It decided not to work
Giving
for a minute.
false hope to millions.
I was all good. It was everything was going to be good, and then all of a sudden it didn't even work. I just kept scanning, or it was the internet. I don't know. I had to restart the computer, all that jazz. Fun stuff, right? Fun stuff. But I don't know if you've seen it, Cindy. What I posted on our JC Sports, our Red Alert podcast.
Hmm.
And you could talk to Darren McCarty at any time. You could literally talk to him right now,
Right.
and you could
Right.
text him.
Yeah.
And I was going through the whole thing about what it means to be a Detroit Red Wing, right? So I was bored yesterday. Well, not bored. I was really pissed off from the Detroit Red Wings game against the Wild, where they decided to, of all, they start let's come back in the third period. Oh, that's great. So then I was like, when they lost, I was like, okay, there's clearly something that I'm missing, because you know, Cindy, you know how it is when you wear a certain jersey, there's an aura to it. There's an aura to a Red Wings jersey. Okay, there's a standard to uphold. Okay, when you wear a Montreal Canadiens jersey, I know they haven't won a Stanley Cup in years, maybe decades. Yeah, decades, because it was '93. I was born '94, so 3 decades. Who's counting?
Right.
But you still have a standard to uphold. Like, there's the people before you, like the Guy Lafleurs for Montreal, and for Detroit, it's Eiserman, it's Fedorov, it's Lidstrom, it's Gordie Howe, Lindsay, Delvecchio, Sawchuk, like Red Kelly. Go on, list goes on. Yankees, same thing. There's certain jerseys when you wear it, you have a duty to uphold what the jersey means. So
Hmm.
I went back and I looked at some of the things that some of the players value. And these are some of the things that I came along with. Tradition, they value tradition. Every player, I think it was Fedorov who had the best quote. He goes, when you put on a Red Wings jersey, it's different than any jersey you're ever going to put on in your entire life. And this is a guy who, left Detroit, went to Anaheim, went to Columbus, didn't really work out, right? Professional culture. Lidstrom mentioned that. Like, you come into the room, you are expected to be a professional, and that is the duty of what you're supposed to do. A brotherhood. I'm sure McCarty can say something about this. I'm sure every Red Wing who has ever played with the Detroit Red Wings can say that.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you play in Detroit, there's expectations to what you're supposed to do as a Detroit Red Wing. And there's loyalty, like loyalty to your coach, your owner, who gives you a lot. I mean, let's be honest, like, people don't like Chris Illich. He gives you a really good building to play in, a really good practice rink. You got all the amenities. There's no excuse. I mean, even the Pistons were like, coming from the Palace, which Palace was a nice place when the Pistons left, to coming to LCA was like, they're mortified. They were like, wow, this is amazing. Like, right. So
Right.
you have every advantage that you could ever want as a professional. And it goes further than that. I mean, you come to Detroit as a Red Wing, you play an Original Six franchise, which is rare, right? There's 6 franchises in the NHL that can say that.
Right.
And then you watch the last couple weeks of Detroit Red Wings hockey, and you watch what they've been putting on the ice, and you watch, like I don't know how many times I've got to watch this team fall behind and then say, I think we should pick it up. Well, too late. It's too late. Like, if you think you're going to come back from 4 goals in the third period, I got news for you. The other team's professionals too. They're going to be playing for. But what I was mortified with was what Elliot Friedman said. So Elliot Friedman said that some players in the Detroit Red Wings locker room they didn't like the comments from Todd McClellan. They didn't like the comments from Todd McClellan. So I sit there and I'm like, oh, they don't like the comments from Todd McClellan. I mean, this speaks to the culture in sports where you got to pamper everyone and tell them they're pretty. Well, I don't value that, and you're in a city that doesn't value that. Okay, like
Right.
in Andrew Kopp yesterday with the quote of the year in terms of total idiocracy. And I've defended Andrew Kopp to a T. I think he's played better than a lot of fans think. But when I hear Andrew Kopp say we got to turn out the noise, we got to turn out the noise of the outside. No, maybe you should listen to the outside. Maybe you should listen to your fans. Maybe you should listen to your coach. Maybe. And I say that because, look, we sit here today. The Red Wings are out of playoff spot. They played like ass on Easter, which they came skipping along like the Easter bunny with the Easter egg, saying, "Hey guys, I'm back." And then the Rangers game, like that was a joke. Like it was a total joke. I know the Rangers just clipped the Capitals 7-1 last night. I don't care about the Capitals. It just seems like, from my perspective, and I don't know what your perspective is, but it seems like, to me, this is a joke. This is a joke of what we're watching, because when you watch this team, and I'm very measured in my takes, I'm very measured in the way that I go about things. But when I watch this Red Wings team, they do not seem like the same Red Wings team that we have seen in prior years. Even with less talent, we've seen more hard work and ethic to the game. You showing up half, you thinking that you got a 1-goal lead and you're saying, "Oh, it's fine. We could take the rest of the Easter off." It's Minnesota Wild that you're playing. They're a good team. I don't care what you're saying. And then I have to hear from people that are fans say, "Oh, we should have traded for Quinn Hughes." Let me just say this. I said this last week. Cindy, you agreed. If you would have got Quinn Hughes, what changes? What changes? Seriously,
Right.
what changes in this organization? Because from what I'm seeing and what I saw from Dylan Larkin, a lot of people call about Dylan Larkin. They're like, "Oh my God, this guy's not captain material." I watched him yesterday, and he's saying energy, guys, energy. You have to tell a professional hockey player to have energy 6 games left in the season, the playoffs on the line. No, that doesn't bode well for me. Honestly, that's a joke. And every player that's on that roster should get sent off to whatever the NASA astronomist it's called. They should just get sent off. Like I can't take it anymore. These guys, they come out here and they play this okey doke hockey, which is fine if you want to play in college hockey or you want to play in the AHL or ECHL, because the ECHL is a joke of a league too. I mean, you can play beer league hockey and it's the same level as ECHL. But I'm just saying, this has been the most, in my opinion, the most embarrassing hockey from the Detroit Red Wings in some time. Because I look at them, I watch them, and I see the talent that they have on the ice. There's just a want factor. And, Darren McCarty said that exact thing. There's a want factor. If you're playing a game in beer league hockey and you don't have a want factor, okay, I know you're trying to get liquored up. You're trying to just, shoot your shot, right?
Yeah.
You're playing in the NHL. You're playing in the NHL for a lot of these guys are making some pretty good money. I mean, Kopp is making, what does he make? 5.5. Compher's
a penny or two.
Compher's getting paid a penny or two.
Yeah.
I can't sit here and say that this is what anybody expects. I can't sit here and say that any of the players that came before these guys, I think they would be absolute. I bet you if we could hook up Yzerman to a truth serum, okay, where we're like, just tell us what you think. I bet you would say, I effed up. I effed up because these players are an absolute joke to this franchise. They're an absolute joke. There's only a couple players I could say, maybe Larkin, Kopp, maybe one of them, but I didn't like his comments, so let's strike him from the record. Gibson, Sider, Raymond, Edmondson. The rest, I mean, I'll give Dominic Shine some shine too, but that's about it. I think this has just been a joke, just to put it lightly.
Did you get it all out, Joe? Are you feeling better?
Yeah, just scream your way in. I know you were on the road, and I was about to go off on a tangent. The internet probably saved me a little bit because I would have said some things that I probably shouldn't have said. So maybe it was good that the internet started buzzing out. We had to redo the live because I just there's nothing that there's nothing that I could hang my head about this season right now. Nothing. And there's a lot of people banging on ASP like he's like some garbage player. I mean, he's a young player. What are you expecting?
Right.
My problem is with this team is the veterans. What we saw from Patrick Kane yesterday, that bullshit penalty that he took, which was a selfish penalty. I have a big problem with that. Huge problem with that. Because it's team over you. Okay. You might want to get back at Quinn Hughes. Not the time. Use your brain. And my opinion, and you could say it as well, Cindy, there's a want factor to being good at anything in life. If you want to be a good YouTuber, okay? I know there's some people that think they can do the whole YouTube thing. Fine. You could do it, but you have to want it. You want to be a good stylist, like in a salon, or you want to be a good barber. You gotta want it. You want to be a good politician. You gotta want it. I mean, obviously, there's people like John James that just skate by. But anyways, my point is, you have to want what you want. You have to want it, and I just I can't even. I can't even.
I think Darren said it very well, and he said that you have to hate losing more than you want winning. So I mean, it's not that you don't want, but the want is you don't want to lose, and you can't. If it sickens you to lose, then you're in the right place. So here's my take on this, and I'm glad you were able to get that all off your chest, Joe, because you're too young to be having a heart attack on us here.
Oh my God.
We don't want that. But here's the thing, to your point. It's not on any one particular player. I don't believe Quinn Hughes or anybody else could have made any difference, or whoever they wanted, whatever marquee player you want to name. It's not a player individual problem. The problem is a culture problem. It's an organizational problem. And to your point of a lot of the guys back from the day, they knew what it meant to be a Red Wing. And the organization, I feel, has failed these players and, in fact, failed the fans by not instilling in them what it means to be a Red Wing. We're talking about identity. These are the problems that have been plaguing the Red Wings for many seasons, regardless of who is on the roster. It's culture and it's identity. Those are the two things that they're missing. They are missing that we can't stand to lose culture. The culture has to change. And secondarily, and maybe I've got these in the wrong order, but it's the identity. They don't know what it means to be a Red Wing. What does that legacy mean? And if, it's all become, it seems to me, very transactional. This has been a transactional thing, you pay me and I'll go skate for you kind of thing. I do think there was a moment, or at least I felt that there was a moment where this team was gelling, where they were coming together under that umbrella of we're Red Wings and this is what it means to be a Red Wing. And then that seemed to dissipate. And I don't know, it seemed right when that Olympic break happened, that's when it kind of all started going downhill in that regard. And I don't know psychologically if something happened there or whatever, but what I do know is that they still don't have an identity, and they still don't have a culture of, we hate to lose. We aren't going to lose because we hate to lose. Those are the things that I think they really have to they have to drill down into those intangibles and get to the heart of it. And maybe kind of what you're talking about too is, where's the heart? When Dylan says, where's the energy? He's saying, where's the soul? Where's the heart? The soul of the Red Wings is missing. There's something wrong there. They have to address that. It's not just a matter of performance. Performance is just an extension of that, right? I mean, of course, you have to be adequately prepared physically. You have to have the right leadership. You have to have the right system. You've got to have people who've got capability. That goes without saying, but to what you were saying, Joe, they're all professionals. They all can play at a certain identified level. Now, within that, there are various gradients of that level, right? But the point is, they all have to be on the same page with who they are and what they must have. It's not even an option. I think for some of these guys, they're already looking to next season. They're already looking to see what kind of contract they're going to have, where they're going to go, what their options are, instead of, and here's the other thing too, to build onto those first two things, identity and culture, where we've got some serious lack. Here's the other thing too. These guys obviously do not believe they can win. They have a lack of belief that they can do it for whatever reason. And we're not in the locker room, so we don't know, but they don't believe either in themselves or each other, or maybe both. But there's obviously a lack of belief that they can actually make the playoffs. And I don't know if we're going to talk about this later in the show. I think we probably will. But is there a path forward? Is it possible? Because the fact of the matter is, they have not been mathematically eliminated yet. There is a
Yeah.
path forward, and we can talk about that here in a little bit. But until we nail down culture, identity, and belief, those are the three intangibles that make all the difference in why the Red Wings are not in a playoff spot today.
Well, I go back to what I said just a couple moments ago. Like, you gotta want it as a player, and I don't see it from these players. Like, you could blame the organization all you want in terms of what is distilled. It should come mandatory. Like, you should know what you're getting into. Like, when you go into the LCA, yes, it's not the Joe, and you don't see all the banners, but just when the banners are down, because they roll up and everything. When they roll down, you look at those banners and you go, wow, there is a tradition here. Okay. It's kind of like Dan Campbell said a couple months ago, and he said, we got to get back to the standard that we have. And it's normal with players, there's complacency, everything like that. But you haven't earned your complacency. You haven't earned the right to not play up to your standard. And the way I look at it is this. You said it right about the identity. They don't have an identity right now. I mean, you ask them, what do you do well? There's not much that they do well. They're not good at 5-on-5. They're middling on power play. They're not great on the penalty kill. I say their identity is John Gibson saving their ass and Todd McLellan, and because of the power play. That's the only thing I think is the major difference. Now, you want to say Larkin and guys like Raymond and Sider, I agree with you 100%. I think they're mainstays, but the rest of the roster, the bottom six, a lot to be desired. And, it was interesting hearing different inputs from, like, you heard Mark Messier talk about a couple of times when the Red Wings are on national TV. He's like, this guy Larkin, he's out there gutting it out. He's gutting it out. You could see that he is trying with all his might to try to play the game. And you could tell that he's obviously hurt. And when you see a player like that, like, let's say Cindy loses her voice, guess what's going to happen? I'll take the reins. I'll make sure that we drive to the end of this road. Yeah. When you see your captain gutting it out, trying to be serviceable, even though just to be out there, and you're not playing to the standard that is upheld, that I got a major problem with that. And I don't think it's an organizational issue. I think it's a player issue, and I think that falls squarely on Steve Yzerman. I think if you got him to do a truth serum, you said, where did you mess up? And he would tell you certain players that he messed up on. He totally should never have got them. Should never have got them, because they're not players that you look at. Let's go look at Pittsburgh. Okay, they added Kyle Dubas is the general manager in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. Take Soderblom, 8 goals. Where was that with Detroit?
Well, you can make the same argument about Veleno. Veleno's been doing much better since he left.
Veleno, right, in Montreal. Mantha in Pittsburgh, which he's in a contract year. He usually outperforms in a contract year. That's what he does. Got to spare. Even Johnny Berggren, like Jonathan Berggren, looks pretty good in St. Louis.
How about Alex Nedeljkovic?
Exactly. There's something not right with the Sox.
Joe, this is why my argument is it's cultural and it's organizational, because we just named half a dozen players who left Detroit
and got better.
Not even just a little bit better, considerably better. So that's my point. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I think there's some.
You know what? You might be right. You might be right. It might be an organizational problem.
It has to be.
Because
It has to be.
when we go through the players that are doing good with other teams, it far outweighs the players that are doing good here in Detroit.
But here's
Maybe
where
there
I
is
think here's where I think you got it though. So I think we're both right. I think I'm right in terms
both
of
can
the
be true.
organizational,
Both
but
can be
here's the
true.
thing. I think who do you hold responsible for that? Steve Eiserman, the general
That
manager,
part.
the former captain of this team, the one that they still call the captain, right? So he's not just another hired gun that came in to be a GM. He's part of the history and legacy here. Therefore, I believe that more responsibility falls on him. It is, you mean to tell me, and maybe he has, I don't know. But if Steve Eiserman hasn't walked into that locker room and he hasn't laid down for these guys, and I have to believe he hasn't, and he hasn't laid down for them the law of what he experienced in his tenure here, what he built here with a very special group of people. And if he hasn't inspired them, that's on him because he has all of the pedigree in the world to do that. And if he's done that and they're still not convinced, again, lack of effectiveness. So he needs to find some way. Now, I do know for a fact that he has had other players come in and have chats with some of these guys beginning of the season about different things. I do know that. But there's nothing like that man walking in the room and commanding it because he can do that. But I think it says a lot, Joe, when we talk about not understanding where you come from and who you are. When during the Jersey retirement for Sergei Fedorov, you had these, I mean, we're talking that recently. You have some of the top players, some of the teams, some of the people on this team saying when they showed a picture of Vladimir Konstantinov and they said, "Who's the guy in the wheelchair?" Are you kidding me? You're kidding me, right? I mean, how could they not know his role in the legacy of this organization and this team? You mean who's responsible for letting them know who the hell they are? To me, that falls 100% on Steve Eiserman, and I think he's failed in that.
It's kind of like, Michigan State football, right? Michigan State football has a tradition. If you go back to the 60s and everything. And a lot of the new coaches that have came into Michigan State, they haven't installed the culture of what it means to be a Spartan football player. And a lot of the former Spartans who have been on that team said the same thing. They're like, we don't know what it is. We don't know what it means. Like, they don't know what D'Antonio did or Bubba Smith in the 60s did, who was winning national championships and everything. They don't know. And it's your job to educate them on the tradition of the Red Wings. And it'd be interesting to see how many of these players really know the tradition of being a Detroit Red Wing, because you got to be honest with yourself. Like, I think this is how things cascade themselves. I think when you look at Toronto, why have they fallen off the map so long? I could say that maybe that they've fallen off the map because people aren't educated on what it means to be a Maple Leaf. Like it's been so long since they won a Stanley Cup. What, 67?
Right.
That's a long time. So
right.
It takes a great coach. It takes a great general manager, a great leadership from the top down to put together a culture. And I could say, if you look at the Pistons, how they've redone their culture back to what it was,
right?
That's a sign of it's in their own building. They should know. Even the Tigers, Lions, like the Lions. When were the Lions good? 57, and Dan Campbell has the culture back to where they were really pissed that they were 9-7. Most years that would be a successful season for the Detroit Lions, but guess what? Expectations change, and there's expectation to the culture of that team. So I watched this Red Wings team, and this is part of the thing we were talking about. Was this part of the Yzer plan? Because if this was part of the Yzer plan, he failed that part, and that's the major thing that's really sticking with me is, are these players coached up to what Detroit Red Wings hockey is? Like, obviously, Yzerman is a great player. And GM, I mean, he did good in Tampa Bay, but up until this point with Detroit, it's been a little bit hit or miss. And I just look at Yzerman and I go, there's no way this slipped underneath the cracks. There's no way. But as you watch this team the last couple games, I mean, New York was a joke. They won that Philly game, which I thought maybe could restart something. No, because they did the same thing against New York and they did the same thing against Minnesota. And they're fighting for their lives right now. I mean, these two games coming up with Columbus and Philadelphia are going to be massive games for them. And if they can't show up for these games, I don't want any of these players back next year. Honestly, every player could be on the market. That's
come on now.
reality.
Let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. And I have to say, I've been subject to this kind of thinking. I get told all the time, elected officials, and when people get mad, throw them all out. And I'm like, wait, there's a couple of good ones.
I understand there's a couple of good ones, but
I understand where you're coming from.
If the play matches, if the play doesn't match the will to win, I don't need to see anything more. I really don't need to see anything more, because if you can't get up for these 3 home games, these are the last 3 home games of the year potentially, and if you win, you might get in the playoffs. Like, you might, these 2 games that are Tuesday and I think Friday or Thursday, these are huge games against
well, they're
Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah.
Flyers and Blue Jackets and Devils.
Those are must wins.
Yes.
Those are must wins.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you can't get up for these games,
Yeah.
are you really a pro? To be honest,
Right.
like, that's just the reality. So
Fair question. No, that's a fair question. No, really, because you're right. These are do or die games. They must win them. The reality is, from a numeric standpoint, in a mathematical standpoint, they are must wins, but also they're a must win from the heart and soul perspective, right? From the intangibles perspective, they are must wins. They need this for the confidence that they are going to need, because they do have to take 4 out of the last 5. They just really, they have to. And if they lose one of the next 2, forget it. I mean, I think, and I haven't really done the numbers, but I'm willing to bet that they're mathematically out of it if they lose either one
they're
of
not
those games.
mathematically out, but their chances of playoffs go down significantly.
To nothing.
Yeah.
Right. But they absolutely have to take 4 out of 5. And I don't know if they can do it. I really don't. I mean, can they do? Are they capable? Yes. Will they? Do they believe they can do it? That's another story entirely. Larkin's playing hurt. I think you got a couple other guys that are playing hurt. You've got guys who are just as frustrated. I think the frustration is what you saw with Patrick Kane yesterday. Just a loss of control. He had a moment that he wasn't acting like a professional, which is so unusual for him and very out of character. But he let his emotions get the best of him. And I think part of that is this enormous frustration that he feels, that you're expressing as from a fan. He has that same frustration as a player, and that's what I think you saw yesterday. Guys are playing hurt. I mean, but you know what? Guys are playing hurt all over the league at this point. So, I mean, I don't give them a pass on that, but I do know that that's the case. I get it, but you're going to have to get over that. And that's where you come down to those intangibles. That's where you come down to the drive, the desire, the heart, the energy that Dylan Larkin talked about, because that's the only thing that's going to pull you up and over that stuff. But that's the very hallmark of what a champion is. That is how you earn your place. And this team, these players, they need to earn it. Whatever they've done in the past in their careers on other teams is doesn't matter. It has no bearing on what needs to be proven right here, right now, in these next 5 games. They have to bring it. And they're going to have to dig down deep and find it. And somebody is going to have a conversation with them. And I think it has to be Steve Yzerman. They have to come in and say, and make them understand the gravity of the situation. And maybe some of them have already written the season off. In fact, I would bank you money right now that some of them have already started making off-season plans, booking flights. I guarantee it.
And I want no part of those players come back.
And I understand that. I totally get that, and I don't disagree with you. But I think there are some that, but I'm saying that's what I think is going on in the room. I think you have a level of disbelief that they don't even believe they can pull this off.
Look,
And I
if
don't think it's
you're
going to happen because of that.
if your
Sadly.
mindset as a professional is I don't think I can get it done, you're a loser. Like let's just be honest. Like you're a real loser
Yeah.
if you think that, I can't get it done, so I might as well just quit. That's loser talk. I don't have any time for that, and I think that's an absolute joke. And you could agree with that too, because
Oh, 100%.
you've
Yeah.
you've came so far in what you've been able to do.
Yeah.
Coming saying I don't think I can win. Bullshit. I know
Right.
that your
Right.
path is a little bit, your path that you took to get to political office was hard. It's very hard to be good at what you're doing. It's very hard to be good at anything that you do. So when I see a player say, "Oh no, I don't think I could do it," like just get away from me. And I think that's the biggest mark. Now you mentioned playoff odds. This is what makes the next couple games huge, because when you think about this, if they lose tomorrow, their playoff odds, if they lose in regulation, go down to 4%. If they lose in
Yeah.
OT, it's 11.3%. They're at 15% right now. So they essentially need to win these two games against Columbus and Philadelphia. And I would say they have to beat New Jersey. They have to win 4 out of 5. They have 5 games left. They need to win 4 out of 5, and they need people to lose. And I mean, I look at Ottawa right now, and
Yeah.
they're pretty. They
They're on
won last
fire.
night.
On
They won
fire.
last night, but
Did you
I
see
don't
the
know.
comeback that they made last night?
It was wild, but
It was extraordinary. You know what's interesting? And because you mentioned that, look at the parallels between Ottawa and Detroit. Detroit was down 3 goals at the end of the first period, so was Ottawa. But the outcomes were drastically different.
it just goes to show you, like, one team wanted it, and the other team
That's
really
right.
didn't. You know what I'm saying? And I
That's
look
right.
at the Red Wings right now, 88 points, 77 games, so they got 5 games left. The Islanders are 78 with 89 points. They're gonna have a tough track to make the playoffs, but they're only 1 point out of their divisional race. But the Red Wings are 2 points behind Ottawa. And when you look at Ottawa's schedule, like I look at Ottawa's schedule and I go, okay, who are they playing? So they played Tampa Bay. That's a pretty good game for Tampa Bay, because I think Tampa Bay is trying to uh, keep that first spot in the division. So they're
Right.
definitely going to be motivated.
Right.
Then they go play Florida, which Florida is not in the playoffs, but it's at that point it's not. Florida still shows up sometimes, and they don't show up sometimes. So whatever. They play the Islanders on Saturday, which is a huge game for playoffs, I think, in terms of that. Then they played the Devils and then the Maple Leafs. So their best chance at a loss was yesterday against Carolina, and they won. And you got to give them credit for that. They won that game, but because Detroit didn't. And the way I look at this, Cindy, from my perspective, is if they want to win, 4 out of 5 is the way to go, in my opinion. And that's with the way that this team's been playing. I can't sit here and say that for sure is plausible, in my opinion. Yeah, it's just not.
I don't think here's my thing is I don't think that they can cure the disease that is running rampant through that organization in time. I really don't. And it's gotten out of their control. They had lost control of their destiny several games ago. And I don't, the only thing they can do is win out. And they've got to hope that enough losses, that the competition takes enough losses to make it mathematically possible. But I'm not so sure they can cure their ills in time. I don't see how they can do that unless some miraculous thing happens. And so I'm not hopeful, but I'll be standing by.
When you look at the Flyers schedule, because we mentioned the Senators schedule, I think those are direct competition right now. Senators and Flyers. Senators play the
Yes.
Devils tomorrow, which is they play at home, so they should win that game, in my opinion. They play Detroit in Detroit, which is going to be a huge game for Detroit. Period.
Mhm.
They have Winnipeg, which Winnipeg likes to show up, and then Winnipeg doesn't like to show up. So again, another team like that. And then you got Carolina and Montreal. I look at the standings. Montreal is trying to pop Buffalo. Carolina is trying to keep their pace over Tampa Bay to get the number one, the home ice advantage throughout the Eastern Conference playoffs. So those are two games that they could potentially lose. I look at the Senators. There's a couple games that they could potentially lose. It all goes back to that week that they had right here. This was the week that they had where they lost to Ottawa, they lost to Philadelphia, and those. I think at the end of this, when we're talking at the end of the season, because it's gonna come eventually. I just don't think that it will be after a playoff race. But when you look at this team moving forward, it's just like, man, like if they would have just won one, and they didn't come to play for those two games, which when if they have any gumption, like I think everyone has regrets on how they at things that they missed. I think everyone has regrets like, oh, I could have done this, but I didn't do this. And then you think about it all the time.
Yeah.
I think they will have regrets of it, some of them. And I think a lot of them just won't care. They'll be in Cabo, they'll be in Florida, they'll be in there.
Right. Hawaii.
And
yeah.
And that again is a cultural issue, like you said, organizational issue, like you said. And I mean, that's just not acceptable from my point of view. And I don't think it's acceptable for anybody, to be honest. I just don't think you could sit here and be like, yeah, that's a great thing.
I don't think it should be acceptable. I don't think it should be accepted. And I think that they're going to have to make I think the organization and the leadership in that organization, the front office is going to have to make a very clear statement about that when these contracts come up, or when the end of the season comes and they make changes. They're going to have to make that understood. But they are also going to have to set the pace. They're going to have to change it at the top. And it's got to come from the top. There's no other way for it to come. It's got to come from the top. So here's the thing. The teams that we're playing, particularly Philly and Columbus, they're both obviously chasing a spot, and they're looking to nail the coffin into Detroit. They really are. They want to nail us out totally so that it eliminates another one of their obstacles.
I can't wait to get that as a drop, but go on.
Yeah, right. They do. They want to put the nail in the coffin. That's what they want to do. So understanding that, you've got to come playing like these are the last 5 games you're ever going to play. But But the question is, do these players have that kind of loyalty? Do they have that kind of commitment? Do they have that kind of buy-in? And I think that's what we're saying. That's what's missing. That's the problem. And it's going to be a mental exercise to get over that if we're ever to have any hopes of doing what some people might say is the impossible. But the hard is what makes it great, right? I think I heard that somewhere. It sounds familiar, a movie somewhere, right? It's the hard that makes it great. And that is true in any competitive environment, particularly though when you get to this level.
It angers me. And I think it angers a lot of fans about what they've been seeing from this team.
Yeah.
Especially the stakes of what this team has been able to not come prepared to play. It was interesting. I heard someone from a national media perspective, and it was what was the guy, Butch Goring, yesterday on TNT's broadcast. Now, Butch Goring is a 4-time Stanley Cup champion. He won 4 Stanley Cups in a row with the New York Islanders. And he said something that I was taken aback by. He goes, "Don't the Red Wings understand that this is their barn that they're playing in?" And you're like, great point. Great point. If a 4-time Stanley Cup champion who doesn't really know the Detroit Red Wings, because he doesn't. He's a New York guy, New York Islanders. He's a Canadian though, so he does know the Red Wings. Gordie Howe, obviously, but
Yeah.
Him saying that was just it was a basically at the end of that game, it rang home exactly what he was trying to say. They didn't come to play for what, a period, and they lost it
Yep.
4-1 going into the third period. I mean, that's you take these incremental plays, and you're just like, okay, something is wrong here. And you're right, organizational issue, cultural issue. It could be a lot of issues, in my opinion. I can't sit here and
Yeah, I mean, and then you compound that with all of the injuries. Okay, that didn't help, but that's not what's breaking this team. That's not what broke this team. It wasn't the injuries. It was the way they handled those injuries from an organizational perspective, from a psychological perspective. Because all teams are having injuries. I mean, they're not encountering anything different than anybody else. But it's the way that they're handling it internally, and we aren't going to know. Those of us out here in the fan base, we just won't know. But what we see is we see the results of it on the ice. And that is what we're taking issue with. And we're just speculating here. We're just a couple of people just speculating about what we think could be wrong or what we think they need to do to fix it. But the reality of the situation is what we can all see in Technicolor, high def, whatever you want to call it. See, I'm belying my age a little bit. I said Technicolor. I remember when Technicolor came out.
the
But
big TVs, yes.
that's right. That's right. In the big cabinet and the whole thing. But anyway, the fact is that we can see the results of their internal challenges playing out on the ice. It's the way that this organization is handling all of those things that every other team in the league is handling. You can see who's handling them well and who's not, who's prepared for them and who isn't, who's able to overcome and who isn't. That is, again, the very definition of a champion is how you handle and how you overcome adversity. Everybody's getting adversity. So you can try to give them all the excuses all you want. But that's why, again, I fall back onto the organization. These players, and I've had former players even say this, we're the hired hands, right? We're just hired work, they don't even see themselves as kind of, even though they're the stars of the ice, they are taking direction from the top, whether that's the head coach, whether that is the GM, whether that's ownership, whatever the case might be. The point is that the way in which adversity is handled, yes, individual players have to handle their own individual adversity like champions, but the organization must prove that they are able to handle adversity as well. What's so frustrating, I think, to all of us is that nobody can argue Steve Yzerman's championship pedigree. Nobody can argue, if they know enough about Todd McLellan, can argue he's a champion too. He's got a championship pedigree. So what's so frustrating to me, and maybe it's frustrating to a lot of other people that are listening and watching and so on, is that you've got all of this championship pedigree sitting there, and yet they cannot ice a championship team. You can't even ice a team that can make it in the postseason. What is wrong there? And the only people that know that are the people that are on the inside, but it's clearly, to me, an internal problem. And I don't care how many different people you bring in from the outside. You can have I mean, let's face it, you can have a revolving door, and they have in many cases had a revolving door of players that have come in and out in all the different positions. Goalie, centers, wings, defensemen, it doesn't matter. They've had a revolving door. They're getting the same results. They have to get real with where that's coming from.
That's the most frustrating part, and it kind of goes back to what I kind of thought when he got hired. Yzerman got hired. How much of an impact did a guy like Stamkos and Hedman being in the organization actually help him out? That's a major question I had when he came in here, and obviously we know that he's drafted well, but I gotta say the pro scouting aspect, not good, not good. Giving take Soderblom off the team, and he goes and he scores 8 goals with Pittsburgh. Like, okay, got to spare. Like, you should have held on to him instead of whoever you were gonna. Gustafsson. You signed Gustafsson as a recoil, just to a comedy of errors, in my opinion. And like you said, it's an organizational issue. It's obviously something that if when they look back on this whole season, there's got to be some soul searching from Eiserman to Illich to McClellan, Larkin, Sider, Raymond. What do you want? You know, the main guys that are going to be here. We know Larkin's going to be here. We know DeBrinket's going to be here. What do you want? Like, what do you think of this team moving forward? And what do you think this team should be? I think that's how they should do it. And I think that McClellan calling out people and then the players getting offended or thinking that, oh, it was a little too harsh and into the media. No. No, because I watch a guy like Dan Campbell. He'll call out players that aren't playing up to snuff, right? AJ Hinch will do the same thing. JB Bickerstaff for the Pistons literally called out a player and said he was unwashed ass today, which is amazing from a coach. And you think about it and you go, you're a professional. I don't care what your feelings are.
Yeah.
You're in your feelings. I mean, the only player that could really be in his feelings is LeBron James, and he's, a good player, but he needs help to win because he's obviously in his feelings. So I have a hard time with that. I really do. Like I watch guys like Connor McDavid deal with the crap he deals with in Edmonton. Like the guy asking him, "Oh, you haven't won a gold medal, and you haven't won a Stanley Cup. Like, do you feel like a loser?" Like, what? Austin Matthews wins a gold medal with the Team USA, and then gets berated when he gets back to Toronto Maple Leafs. Like them saying that he's not a captain, or these guys in Canada deal with a lot more BS than here in Detroit. I mean, the media sometimes around here is a little bit soft on these guys. They should be a lot harder on them, and they're lucky that they don't play in Calgary or Edmonton or Vancouver or Montreal or Ottawa or Toronto. Yeah. They're lucky. They're really lucky, but they think that coach giving them the business is something that they should be offended over. No, I don't got time for that. Copp's I like Andrew Copp, but that comment right there was it was tone deaf idiocy. Like, just read the 20,000 people that are in your stadium booing the crap out of you on a nationally televised game again.
Yeah.
Just read the room. There's 20,000 people. You could read 20,000 faces and then them telling you, what the hell are we paying our money for? And that's the major thing. Like, there's a lot of people that pay a lot of money to go to these games, and the players aren't obliging with what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's my main issue. So,
well, and I don't know if these guys are given prepared statements. From what I understand, they're not. At least they weren't back in the day. When Darren played, they weren't given a lot of media training at all, actually. And I don't think they were given marching orders or prepared statements. However, I do know from someone else that was associated with the Chicago organization, and it's not Frankie, by the way. It's not Frank Nazar. So I'd want to make sure I don't want to get it's not any of the current players on their roster, but it is a very prominent individual associated with the Chicago Blackhawks, did say that he had to be very careful what he said, and that they gave him prepared statements. So I think that it may be going that way. So perhaps some of these people are speaking prepared statements. I don't know. I'm not trying to excuse Andrew Copp. I'm just saying that it's a possibility that I believe that part of the
I'll tell you this, Cindy,
has changed in this game. So
I'll tell you this, Cindy. If that is a prepared statement by a PR professional, fire his ass. Yeah,
I know.
You can't.
No, I don't disagree with you. I don't.
It's like you're in a politician business. Okay, it's like when a politician goes, "I've worked so hard. And you're like, tone deaf. Like it's completely tone deaf. Like you gotta. Yeah, you like it's okay. Like, you could just say what it is. Like, maybe you're exhausted from the way it's going. Okay, I get that. But don't be tone deaf, and I think that's a major issue. So, any closing thoughts?
I think Todd McClellan's trying to make it real. When I said they got to get real about it, I think Todd McClellan knows exactly what's going on. The fact that he's calling people out, that he's calling situations out, That is probably the closest to the truth that we're going to get. And I think that it goes back to something you said a couple of shows ago, Joe. This team is soft. They're soft in so many ways, and they got to get tough. And the question is, for me, do they have enough time to do it? I
No.
don't believe that they do, but I am going to stick with it, see it to the end. Let's take it a game at a time and see where that leads us.
Yeah, I think that's the way I'm approaching it. You know, a lot of people said that they're checked out or whatever. You're not checked out. But the expectations, like I'm going into every game expecting to be hurt again. You know, I had a really good comment from someone, and I don't know if it was true, but she said that she relates it back to her ex-husband, where she's ready to get hurt again. And I said, damn, that's really sad, but that's really true. You know, that's a really good point. And I'm not in that situation, so I don't know. But she's like, that's what it's like. I'm like, oh, okay, that's really eye opening. But it just goes to show you, like, people are upset. They should be. They should be really upset with the way this thing has gone.
Yeah.
People are pissed off. They should be. This has not been the way that we have thought. And I showed you how pissed off I was in the first part of the podcast. And then I think there's a
Just
lot
a
of
little bit. Just,
I think there's a lot of
speaking which,
disappointment.
I'm gonna ask you a quick question. I don't know if you can answer it in your closing statements, Joe, but you said you were gonna tell me off camera who this who contacted you. Can you just tease people a little bit? You don't have to give it away. I get it. It's a confidential source. I have those too. But was it someone inside or outside Detroit? Can you tell us that much?
It was someone who's played for Detroit. Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. That's all I wanted to know.
Because he said, you know, I saw your posts on X. He actually saw it on X.
Yeah.
He emailed me, which was weird because I don't usually get emails from that email, but it was weird. But good to him because he reached out and he said, you know, I read the whole thing and I agree with it 100%. I think it's a fundamental issue with the team. He goes, I don't think that the way that they're playing is anywhere close to Detroit rubbing hockey. And he goes, you know,
That's right.
me being, because he wasn't a high level player. He wasn't a high level player, but he was a useful player. He was a very useful player.
Okay.
And he was very he doesn't live here in Detroit no more. He watches the Red Wings whenever he can. Let's just say he was on a Stanley Cup champion team with McCarty and all those guys. But
I thought I knew who it was. I was see. This is what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to try to guess it. So when you tell me off camera, I'm going to see if I got it. But the one I was thinking of still lives here, so it's not him. Okay.
Yeah. So it was interesting because it's someone that I didn't expect to get an email from. So, but he was he pointed. He was like, "No, this is bullshit." Like he goes, "This is not how you play hockey. This is not Red Wings hockey." And he goes, "Furthermore, it's a joke to everyone who's came before you." And I was like, "Damn!" Like that's all you gotta say, man. And I think that's where we'll leave it because that's pretty much the gist of the conversation. Like you could sit here all day long and rehash about what this means and what's going on and the cultural or organizational or players being soft. I think it's all of the above, like you do. But the guy, he said at the end of the email, now I will stick with this, and this will be my closing thought. So when you put on that sweater, there's an obligation to uphold, and it's not to the ownership, it's not to the general manager, it's to guys like Gordy and Lindsay, and he goes, even Mickey Redmond, that guy busted his ass he was playing during the Dead Wings. He goes, if there's any indication of what it means to be a Detroit Red Wing, I mean, Mickey Redmond's a pretty good example of being a Red Wing because he put his ass on the line for a team that wasn't really good. And that's the difference. He goes, you know, there's sometimes where I get so pissed off at Dylan Larkin that I think that he could be a lot better. But he goes, I'm watching him gut it out, saying, you know, he said, I'm watching him gut it out and put his heart and soul onto the ice. I can't do that no more. That's exactly what he said. And he said, this is the best part about what he said. It was his last paragraph, but he said, you know, when I came to the Red Wings organization, I had no idea what the Red Wings were about. He goes, all you had to do, look up at the rafters. All you got to do.
Yep.
He goes, that is your obligation to which you uphold, especially since the Stanley Cups are more recent than in Toronto. You know, it kind of the gist of it. And
Right.
I thought it was very interesting and not a player I expected to get a email from, but it was pretty funny, to be honest. So that is the closing thoughts. We'll see you guys in the next Red Alert podcast. Hopefully it's more up, you know, maybe they went through these three and we go on to maybe the playoffs, but right now it does not look good. So we'll see what happens. We'll see you next on the next Red Alert podcast. And just like my podcast feed earlier in the podcast, we showed up eventually and we finished it out. We gutted it out, Cindy. So kudos
Finish strong,
to us.
Joe.
We finished strong.